Have you ever frozen up when you were trying to answer a bar exam question? Well, in this video, I'm going to explain why that happens and what you can do to make sure it doesn't occur on the next bar exam. Stay tuned.
Hi, I'm Jackson Mummy, and for over 25 years, I've helped people pass their bar exams all around the country, people just like you. Please stay tuned, watch this video, and if you'd like to know more about Celebration Bar Review, visit our website at celebrationbarreview.com.
And what I wanted to do is to share a little bit of how I see this process going for people, because I think it becomes really a challenge. What we call this was making an information withdrawal. I had a conversation with Paul Sheely at Learning Strategies, and I was talking to him about after the February 2018 exams, and I said, you know, I had some students who went through the exam. They were photo readers, they were studying, they were doing a lot of work, but then they got to the exam and they did really well in some subjects and not well in other subjects. And it was really kind of random and hard to figure out what was what. And he said, well, they're just having an information withdrawal problem. And, you know, in the way that when you're talking to really brilliant people, sometimes you don't want to sound incredibly stupid at that moment. I was like, oh, of course. And then I was like, I don't know what he means. So I started thinking about it and I talked to Millicent about it, and I did some other work, and I was like, okay. And I interviewed some students who had had that experience on the exam. And what I began to see was that there was a pattern to what was going on. Now, I put the image of a superhero up because those of you that have been in our boot camps know that I talk about setting a pose, striking a pose to feel like you're in charge, that you know what you're doing. That part of the process of the exam is being confident that you know what you know. And so I wanted to just briefly share with you this idea of how I think you should make the withdrawal of information. And to do that, I wanted to sort of walk you through what happens when you make a banking withdrawal, which is where I got to the whole discussion earlier about Venmo and the Cash App and so on. But I realized that there were a variety of different kinds of transactions that people make in their lives, and I wanted to talk through those. The first kind of transaction in a banking sense is what we call a normal transaction. You go to the ATM machine, or you go to the bank if you're an old person, and you write out a check. And you do that because you know you have money in your account. Now, that normal transaction for finance is one in which you're relatively calm. I mean, it's no big deal. It's just something you do. It's routine, and there's an expected outcome. I'll put my ATM card in the machine, I'll type in my PIN number, and I'll get cash back, or I'll write a check and the cashier will give me cash back. And that is a normal, regular transaction. Now, our goal on the bar exam is that you would have normal, regular transactions, right? You go to the exam, you're calm, it's a routine experience, and there's an expected outcome. I'll be asked a question, I know the answer. Makes sense, doesn't it? It's just doing regular things in a regular way. This is when people are at their best. So how do they get to these normal transactions? Well, they do them because they know there's money in their information account. I've studied the subject, I've done mind maps, I've listened to lectures, I've done practice questions, I've read the outlines, I've talked about it and thought about it, I've practiced writing essays, whatever it might be. And as a result, it's routine, you're calm, and you get an expected outcome. That's the normal transaction. And I think we could all picture that and say, okay, that makes sense for me. All right, now, if that's the case, what can happen? What else could happen? Well, you could go to the bank. I'm not saying this ever happened to me. However, you could go to the bank and you know that you don't have quite enough money in your account. In other words, you're going to write a check or put money in that ATM, and it may or may not be able to give you the money back, right? Anybody else ever had that experience? Yeah, maybe. You put your card into the ATM and you think, ooh, is it going to chew my card up and take it? Well, what happens then emotionally is that you are anxious. I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, it's an uncertain outcome for me. I don't know what's going to happen, and it takes time. The teller has to go check your account, or the ATM machine is clicking and whirring away. You've all had that feeling. Don't lie to me. You've had that moment when you're like, I don't know. Now, what does that look like on the bar exam? Well, you get to a question, and suddenly you go, I don't know if I know this. And you get anxious, and you start to tense up. Now you want to take a little more time to make sure you get it just right because you're not sure because there's an uncertain outcome. You can feel that, can't you? You've got that question in front of you or that essay in front of you, and you start tightening up. You start clenching your teeth. Your breathing would actually change if you were aware of it. You notice that you're taking a lot more time than you would on a question where you knew the answer, and you're not certain what the outcome would be. It's a bad feeling. It's not a complete full-blown disaster. You may be able to save it. I may find out, hey, I did have enough money. I get my cash out. It's all good. The teller smiles at me and hands me my money. But I don't know that until that moment, right? Everybody got that? All right. Now, a third outcome is that you go to a bank and you don't have an account there and you don't have any money at that bank. And you walk in and you say, I got nothing. How am I going to get money out of this bank? Well, I'm going to rob them. So I pull out my gun and we now have a full-blown crisis, right? I mean, this is not a good thing. And in this moment of crisis, at least as I've watched all those TV shows, I'm in a hurry. I'm rushed. Hey, give me the money right now. It's a crisis. I want it right now. And what's the result? It's a bad outcome. Definitely a bad outcome. Maybe for the bank robber, maybe for the teller, maybe for the other bystanders. But bad stuff is going to happen. Now, here's where some of you are living on the bar exam. You are living in the bank robbery zone. You come to a question and you're freaked out about it. I don't know. I don't have this information at all. Now what happens in your brain? It's a crisis. You feel rushed. You know it's going to be a bad outcome and you start to panic, right? You can feel that. And some of you have had that experience. Maybe you've had it frequently. And in that moment of crisis and feeling rushed and looking at the bad outcome, all sorts of bad things start to happen. Now, think about what happens at the bank at that moment. You come in with your guns out and you say, give me all your money. The teller hits the emergency button. The plexiglass window drops. The die and the money blows up or explodes. The vault door closes. You're not getting your money without force. In an information setting, you're not getting your information without force. And your brain, your non-conscious brain now just shuts down. It's a crisis mode. You're not asking your non-conscious for help at this point. You are literally trying to get it all from your conscious mind. The problem is there's nothing in your conscious mind. We didn't put anything there. You don't have an account at that bank. And so now you've got a really bad outcome and it's going to get bad and it's going to keep getting bad. And it's tough to recover from the bank robbery mode of information withdrawal. All right. So I shared all that with Millicent and Paul, and I thought, that's pretty good. And then the other night I had an epiphany. I realized that there was a fourth level of what happens that might actually be more accurate for many of you. So, ta-da, here we go, the part you haven't seen. The worst case scenario. Yeah, that's what I came up with. The worst case scenario. You rob the bank, same as before, but now it's your own bank where you have an account with $1 million balance. Oh my God, how stupid can you be? See, imagine walking into your own bank and you say, stick them up. I want to rob this bank. Give me all your money. And they say, oh, Mr. Mummy, you do know that you have an account with us and it's got $1 million balance. All you have to do is write a check. What? This is my bank? I have money here? Why am I holding out a gun? Why am I trying to rob myself from my own account? That would be stupid, wouldn't it? It would be crazy to do that. But here's exactly what's happening to many of you on the bar exam. You have all the information already. You have your own information bank account, and it's worth millions of dollars. But you're trying to rob the bank, and you already own it. It's already there. And because you've got your gun out and you've got your bandana on and you're in a total crisis mode, well, what's happening? You're getting no progress. Everything stops for you. You're unable to answer the question. You see, instead of a normal, regular transaction, if you'd just gone in and said, what's my bank balance? Oh, you have $1 million in your bank account or whatever it might be. Oh, I guess I don't need to rob the bank then, do I? I can just make an information withdrawal. You see, I think what a lot of you are doing on the exam is you're forgetting to ask yourself, what do I really know? So part of the approach to the test, whether it's essays or the MBE or multiple choice, is asking yourself, what do I know about this? As I'm reading the question, what do I know about this? I know a lot. I really do. I've got an account that's worth millions of dollars of information. And all I have to do is to make a withdrawal from that account. I'm not going to bounce a check. I'm not going to have to rob the bank. I've got that information. Instead of going into crisis mode, Go in assuming that you already have a balance and that you can do the work. And when you do that, you're going to get a much better response.